we are in principle okay with ASB to come in and technology and have an instant solution for deployment.
Okay.
But right now,
Mhm.
we will have to plan for that work. Okay, and we will have to see if the August-September time frame, the code drop that we have for RBC, the scheduled one, can we include, and service all our products on that ASB or not? So that is the action that we've already triggered internally. We'll be
Okay.
doing that POC and coming back with an update on, whether the August or September code drop will include ASB or we will still need, active MQ or IBM MQ.
Okay, so I think more in this case, like now, I will suggest like now we at the same time in parallel, we should look at the active MQ deployment as well, because we have a tight timeline, for September to start our QA testing, just to prepare for the risk, in case Interact is not able to complete POC or their POC showcase they cannot work with Service Bus. I think we should have a plan B that say let's still deploy ActiveMQ as a backup plan, because we cannot wait until say August to find out it's not working.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would agree with that, Frank.
So I have two questions here. Do you know, Sunny, if there is any ETA on when your POC will be completed?
Not right now, though.
Okay, not right now. And the second thing is, last week we worked with Venkat from your team, and he was trying to install ActiveMQ and probably Kafka on VMs. And we already told him that this is not the way that we can do for non-pure prod, because there was no clear instructions of how to install that. And we also offered him if we can use the existing Azure services for ActiveMQ or Kafka in Marketplace, Azure Marketplace, but we haven't received any answer yet.
Okay, I'll try and answer that too right away. Okay, so that we can move forward with this agenda today. The answer to that is no. Before we got into all of this, we had at a high level discussed and we had broken down all the components, the infra component, the script, the application components, and we had presented a sheet back to Win. And I think Sid was there on the call. I don't remember if Igor or Reza, anybody was there, or Frank, I don't remember if you were there, but we had presented that, I think a week or 10 days back. Not a week or 10 days back, before we triggered the deployment, exactly, like 2-3 days before that. We had presented and we had clearly said that all the Kafka queues and active MQs, my product can, internally trigger them. Okay, but we decide or we configure that specifically to every implementation. And the instruction or the direction from Win was, let's get started. And if there's any work to be done manually in RBC environment, we will get started and get going and do that. So that expectation setting has already been done. Pawan or anybody, if you want to add anything here so that we can close out this topic, please go ahead. I don't know. Nothing?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mo, does that answer your question?
Sorry, so are you going to give us some update if we can use the those services from Azure Marketplace, or we have to install those services on VMs, right? So you're supposed to answer these questions, right?
Pawan, will you be able to answer that right away?
Right away from the Postgres and the ActiveMQ, definitely more. Okay. On the Kafka part, okay, I don't see any equivalent service. Okay, I have to check that and come back, because that is the whole reason we have to go to that Confluent Kafka. Okay, which again involves a separate subscription there. Okay, and we have to see the security part. Okay, on that one. So. At least ActiveMQ and Postgres, yes, the Postgres flexible server we can go ahead, okay, and ActiveMQ from the marketplace.
Yeah, Postgres is okay. We already deployed with our modules. But for ActiveMQ and Kafka, yeah, okay, sure. Please, if you can update us about this service, we can maybe make a plan.
Sure.
Thank you.
Where's the components for file processing? Like between VMLM and RBC, there's gonna be batch file back and forth. Where is that configuration or deployment?
Frank, you're asking about the depiction for the file transfer between RBC and the LMS application.
Yes.
So now, like we went ahead and shown via this storage account, Frank.
Storage account. Oh, that's the one.
That is one part. Second part, okay, we need to see, okay, at least I am not very clear, okay, whether it could be from the files can be from the on-premises also, okay.
Correct. Yes.
If at all it is from on-premises and not from another VNet on the cloud, okay, then this depiction where the on-premises to the gateway, okay, that route will be used for connecting with the files.
Okay, because I think that's part I'm not very clear. How does that gonna work? The file transfer between the RBC on premises versus is it gonna be a folder somewhere? We drop a file over there. How does it work actually? In this diagram here, the gateway, is that the API gateway? The RPG, or it's what is this gateway here on the top left?
VPN gateway.
VPN gateway. Okay. Is there I heard that there's gonna be Azure RPG that we're gonna call the API from Interact. Where is that component, or it's just a standard?
Sorry, can you repeat? Azure.
So Interact, the VMLM will actually expose API for RBC to consume, right? So it's two way. One is you're gonna call API from an RBC on premise, and then another way is we're gonna call API from the VMLM application running on Azure. Assume your API will be exposed through RPG. API gateway. So where is that API gateway component in this diagram?
Yeah. So actually, our focus has mostly been on the depiction of how a possible Azure topology will work with our application components. Typically, your API management layer will come in after, beyond this app gateway layer. There'll be an API management layer. And so basically there'll be two kinds of traffic, right? Your app traffic will not be routed through the API management layer. Your API traffic is what your API management layer will intercept.
Okay.
So
it'll be good to put that API management layer, components in this diagram.
All right, we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's something that we needed, once for deployment and execution. Okay. If you scroll up, just I just trying to understand, the communication between on premises and the Azure network. Maybe it's a question to Mo, is it a special network connection between RBC and Azure for the management?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there is some kind of dedicated circuit connections. We call it Azure calls it express route.
Okay.
So yeah, the connection from on-prem to Azure is through that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you see this VPN gateway. This is what makes it secure. So as there are two kinds. One is express route and one is the VPN gateway. Both are dedicated tunnels, right? So you don't need to worry about the security aspect of it.
Yeah.
So Mo, does that mean it's kind of we can treat it as a network, part of RBC network, it's like all the
Yes.
firewall, it's all being managed in open.
Yes. So the IP ranges that we are using in Azure, they are part of the RBC network IP addresses, and all the connections are through private links and private endpoints. So everything is like the RBC network.
Oh, nice. So we don't have to configure any proxy or anything, right? From
No. So the connection from on-prem to Azure is through ExpressRoute, which is a secure circuit connection.
Okay, cool.
So maybe the question for Sunny, I think we discussed some of our challenges that we had during last call, previous week, last week. We also listed some of those challenges that we have. We probably need to review those challenges with Wayne, and we may need to send those challenges to you, to your team. You probably know some of them. For example, the secrets, passwords, everything is in your Kubernetes manifest, and this is not the way that we use secrets and passwords in RBC. So we need to keep all of those in key vaults, and during the deployment, the secrets and passwords are getting fetched from key vaults and be used in deployment manifest. This is, for example, one thing that we need to discuss about it. The other thing is your Kubernetes manifests have a different bunch of properties files. Those files keep some of variables that are being used inside the Kubernetes deployments. So we discussed this challenge last week with your team, that we probably need to move those variables to config map and use those variables from the config map to pods. So this is another thing that we listed. The other thing that we need to discuss in more details is the image vulnerabilities. We had a quick scanning for the existing images that you sent us, and we found a lot of different critical vulnerabilities in your images. So this is another thing that we need to discuss with you and work with your team to resolve those issues. And yeah, we have a complete list. Let us work with Wayne. When we finalize that list, we can send it to you by email, and maybe we can get an ETA, for example, to see when those issues can get resolved. And we are still waiting for your team to give us the completed script for databases, as well as some missing manifests and images. We are still waiting for your team to provide those information to us.
Sure, Mo.
That's okay, Mo. Sorry. Prashant, is that you?
Yeah, I wanted to just ask, are those issues that you have found with the images, have they been collated and highlighted back to the team? Because I have not seen, myself I have not seen one.
No, I'm also hearing for the first time, but I'll tell you what, Prashant. I had informed Win, and I think, again, I'm just going back to the same call, that this is the base product release, like the beta release, which gives them the license sign off, and don't expect any scan or anything to happen on this, because the release which will come officially as a code drop to RBC, that will, that is the one where you can do all the scans and everything. But it's okay if one team has already done that, they can let us know and we can, see what it is.
Okay.
But I think the secret password one is something that we should discuss. I don't know if Shri Krishna is also on the call, but it's okay. I think that is the one we should discuss of how you can do that, because that will be a input for your the architecture going forward.
Share this one. Quickly share one screen. Okay. So yeah, this is the list that I was talking about, but we will send this to you when we confer with Wing. So one of them was the properties files that we discussed. The service accounts is another thing. So I don't know if this is something that we can change to. So we mentioned that all of your applications, they are using service accounts. If we want to use Kivos as the main deployment process, we cannot use service account. Kivos doesn't support service account deployment. So most of the applications that running on our Kubernetes platform, they don't have any service accounts. But if this is something that we cannot change, maybe we have to discuss about the other solutions. This is one challenge. The ActiveMQ and Kafka, we discussed about it. Docker files and binaries. This is something that we finally need these files when we want to use Helios for deployment. So as you may know that Helios built the images, scan the images and push the images to ACR. So we probably need the Docker files and binaries so Helios can build those images rather than we push the images directly to our ACR. And the DB script execution, this is the one that we discussed. We are waiting for your team to give us one script that is being used for DB script execution, because at the end for non-P we need to have those scripts for automation, those type of things. Secret password, we discussed about it. We haven't received all the manifest images. Some of the config maps, config files, some of the images are missing. We're still waiting for your team to give us those files. And the image vulnerabilities we discussed. And the other thing is that we also noticed that your applications are using username and password to access Azure resources such as Postgres. So we are using managed identity to get access to Azure resources. So this is another thing that we need to discuss to change this behavior, I think. So Wing joined us as well.
Yes.
We were discussing about the challenges that we have. I already told them that this list hasn't been confirmed yet with you. We are going to review one more time, and when we confirm, we can send it to the team. But for now, Sani just mentioned that there is no ETA for if we can use Service Bus or even Hub instead of Kafka or ActiveMQ. So
Okay. What about the database scripts? Do we we have an ETA on that?
We are waiting for them to send us the DB scripts. But if you cannot use service bus and even the team is going back to us to see if we can use Kafka and ActiveMQ from Azure Marketplace.
Okay.
Because last week we tried to install those on the VMs, was very
Yeah. So in engineering, we could probably use it from the marketplace for the time being, so that we can get them through this stage, and then we can put it into our plan, and hopefully that gives Intellect some time to just to certify Azure Service Bus. Yeah, or that hub.
We discussed about the image vulnerabilities. We had a initial scanning, found a lot of criticals.
Okay, that's okay. But
That's another thing. Yeah.
the blocker right now for you guys, database scripts, and you're missing some images and manifests.
Yes, and if we can use
Kafka
Kafka
and
and ActiveMQ from Marketplace,
And then use the
confirm.
and then use the marketplace.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also the properties files that we discussed before.
So for now, we can deploy things like if they're using service accounts, we can use the service account engineering. If they're not using managed identities and you're using service principals or something, I guess we can do that. The whole purpose of engineering is just to deploy what they have, and then and now we're learning and we can assess and make the request for adjustments.
Exactly.
So let's get through those bottlenecks. Let's get the Docker files. Let's get the manifests. Let's get the database scripts, guys, and let's get us going here.
Okay. Yeah, if we can have maybe an ETA, maybe we can plan. We don't waste time once.
Yeah. Sunny?
Yeah, well, I know my project manager is working with the team which manages the authentication layer. Yeah, he'll come back to you with an ETA today.
Okay.
Lynn, since you're here, do you get a chance to look at the topology diagram, and do you have any question?
No, diagram is okay. It's clear. It's we already have most of it. It's deployed. I already deployed Service Bus and Event Hub just in case, but it seems like it's not something that we can use for now.
Okay. Assume this is just for development. Do we gonna have a slight different for production? Because I don't really see a DR disaster recovery configuration in the picture, right? Or
Yeah, this is just for us to learn and deploy this thing. Frank, that's a great point. Once we've got this thing running, we should be able to come up with a DR strategy on how we can replicate. So,
okay, cool. And then one thing I think I'm not clear, maybe just just for me, between on-prem and Azure, we can do a lot of batch file, back and forth file transmission, or batch file processing. So maybe you should put something on this diagram, say how would that work?
yeah, I think that's a good point. There's some discussion right now, Frank, around a scheduler and how you can use Stonebranch in the public cloud. We're working with that team for scheduling. If there's ETLs, there's ETLs that we need to configure. We've got Azure Data Factory that is available or will be soon for use. So your teams and teams running it can develop their own pipelines to do the ETLs.
Okay. The schedule will become pretty critical because there's a lot of mission critical function that need to be scheduled, and I think we need some kind of notification if the schedule failure. So
for sure, yeah. For it's actually an OSFI requirement for us with some of this crown jewel workload. Is we need proper scheduling with notification, retries, and all that stuff.
Okay.
That's why we want to use the enterprise process.
Cool.
Okay. So Sunny, you mentioned in a couple of emails we have a lot of bank customers using this, and you know, it's a proven platform. How do we not have the database scripts? I guess is I'm a little
Okay,
curious.
apparently, okay, I will let others chip in, but I know the script which is getting used is, I think it's picking up the passwords and all of that. To be very honest, I'm not very detailed on that, but yeah, Prashant or somebody, if you can help answer that one. This is regarding the ARX script which goes and picks up the passwords for authentication.
What? We just need to, even if you have a local version that you guys have in your office and you can do a PG dump with some test data.
This is absolutely working fine in that local setup. In fact, that local setup is on Azure.
It's on Azure.
It is on Azure?
Pawan?
Yes, Vin. It is on Azure. Okay.
Okay. Can I just get a PG dump from your test database?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Let's see that. As long as it's fake data and it's not your customer data, right?
It is all test data, not customer data, Vin. Okay. Actually, like for this problem, we are thinking to import the scripts from that particular database and give it. Okay. So that things are smooth. Okay. Might be there is the release version problem, Vin. Okay. Where the earlier non-tested version of that particular script came in. Okay.
Okay.
But yes, I don't see any problem in sharing the dump. Okay.
Yeah, if you give me a PG dump, we'll restore that, we'll truncate the tables, and then these guys can get going. And then you guys can figure out the proper item code scripts in the future box.
Can you give us any time? That's like,
Can you do that now? Can you run over and do that right now?
Yeah. Yes. Like, so soon after this call, we can just transfer, get the dump and transfer into the FTP area. Okay.
Perfect.
okay.
Sunny, I thought you have your developer like working with more than team like closely or daily. Is that Pawan? Pawan is the one, or who is the one working with the team?
Venkat, he's part of Pawan's team.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and the other thing is, I understand that your time zone, but I know Venkat is working from India, but is there any way we can have supports in the afternoon? Because sometimes we need to extend our...
Not right now, Mo. I think I had answered this earlier as well. Not right now. Maybe once we move into the, the full implementation, yeah, I will arrange for that. In fact, that is the plan. I have people, in line whose papers are getting processed and they should be here. So you will get full day support, not just in the afternoon, even in the evening if you need it.
Okay, when is that sounding?
That will happen somewhere close to the release, when that's sometime in the late summer.
In the late summer. Okay.
Yeah, because see, those papers take time to get processed. I think you would know that, right? The whole permit process and everything. So that's already been triggered and it's happening.
They don't have to be here though, Sunny. If you can have somebody work a shifted out hours from
yeah,
where
so
you go.
shifted. I have done that, and that guy is working till late India time. I cannot ask him to stretch till morning time, like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. to cover our afternoon. That's the challenge. He covers till about 10, 11 p.m. his time.
Okay. We can take that challenge offline because that's when we're going full speed in the next phase. That's going to become a problem.
No, hopefully we'll have a solution for that.
Okay.
Okay, so Frank, what next? You want to discuss how the non-prod or prod topology will be, or how you want to take this forward now?
I think so maybe back to me and more I would say first let's get the dev environment up and running and working, right? make sure that all the components being deployed. It's like we can do some kind of basic verification, and then we're probably gonna looking again at the diagram, let's say from the integration point with the prime, I'm not sure if we can do any kind of test or POC from integration point of view. But of course, the basic one is the components, all the VMLM components, being deployed, and database being deployed, the service bus, service bus, or Kafka and ActiveMQ. Especially, I think your internal application has dependency on Kafka as well, right? So you use Kafka to exchange message between these two components and then update your database. I think we need to verify the basic function is working to the point that at least you can log on, right? And then next step probably look into as I mentioned in my question about the other configuration, say API management. Because there's gonna be a lot of back and forth between on-prem and the platform. ActiveMQ actually there's gonna be communication between on-prem and the platform as well, plus file transfer, etc. I think once you have everything deployed, and the application up running in a dev environment, I think we can start to plan with it, because what happens we are working on an API, for example, onboarding APIs, 3 APIs for customer search, etc. We actually can deploy to our dev environments, so that we can test the onboarding feature as well, piece by piece. At the same time, Vina team can start looking to say deploy to I think when you are we have 2 dev environments, right? We have 2 dev environments in Azure.
Yeah, we've got an engineering environment, which is
Yes.
kind of no controls, we can do whatever we need. And then we have the actual dev environment,
Yeah, I think you guys learned everything, figure out details, and then now have maybe more I won't say mature, but established process on deployment in the scripts. Maybe that's the time say, okay, we're ready for a deployment to the dev environments, and maybe test it out there. And then we can think about say what is next step, how can we use the same deployment steps to a QA SDF environment. At the same time, I think we should look into say where is the potential area that can cause will have high risk, right? For me, the next step is to facilitate integration between on-prem and the Azure application. So we might need to do some kind of POC.
I'll be right back.
So Sunny, actually to yourself, because you guys know the application, right? So based on the exercises so far, what are the verification we can do, with limited deployment, not deployment, limited scripts, and database, how can we verify the deployment is working, application is working to some extent, that we have high confidence that when we go to SDF and ISC and in production, this whole deployment will work. I think we need some help and guidance from you guys.
Yeah, totally, Frank. In fact, see, the whole idea to get this started early was, with the same purpose. Every bank has their own policies and,
Yeah.
environment setups that we need to tune certain aspects to. I think once we move forward, we'll also understand a lot of other conflicts that will be specific to our RBC that we'll have to put in. So I think it's a process, it's a journey. And, hopefully once this full exercise is done of setting up the engineering environment, I think Mo is already creating a list, which I can see on the screen. I think this should, be, what do you say, our Bible going forward, I would say. We can refer to this, tick off all the items, close all of that, and, make it more mature when we get into the testing environments.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about from testing point of view, I'll assume that log on is just local. Once you have database, you can just create login ID and password for people to log on. So that's one. The other one is like the common the CIM, the
So
common.
you mean the users, the creation that will allow them to get in and use the application, right?
Yes.
User roles and entitlements. Okay.
Yeah. So you
Okay,
can
I
create
think- Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, you can mimic I don't need we don't need the completed day zero scripts because this is just engineering environment this is not we're gonna go to dev and SDF, right? So you can just create a dummy day zero script, maybe create a admin user first, at least that user can log on, and then I think we are at the same time working on that the three interfaces for client onboarding. But at least you can actually log on and start to do entitlements for users, etc. And I think we can do a quick POC. If our the client detail and account list API is working, then we can even deploy to SDF, not SDF, sorry, the dev environments. We can set up API management on your side, our side. We will then we can test in onboarding. I think that will actually verify the integration from API point of view, which is probably a big chunk of the integration pattern. Yeah, I think that would be really helpful.
Can we also do, I don't know, did you guys get a run through of the app, how it works and stuff? So once you have it deployed, you can click through.
We deployed some those applications, but because of,
No
we don't
database.
have backends yet.
Okay. But you don't know how it works. Right?
No,
You don't
we
know.
don't.
Can we, Sunny, can we schedule maybe a demo?
Yeah.
A half hour demos? I'm curious. That's all.
If it has a UI or
Yeah.
exactly.
Is there a UI? There must be a UI.
I would say step one is deploy we mentioned about 81 APIs, then the PD database, and then the day zero script with admin user that be able to log on, and maybe entitlements to create another user for external, so we can verify admin user can log on, and also external there's another UI out of this application called CBX, which is external facing application. So can create another user for external user. They can log on from the web to this CBX application. So at least the log on is working. You can bring up the application.
Cool. Yeah. It's good to know what we're building.
Yeah, one by one, right? So minimum is it's up and running. You can log on, and then we can pick up high risk areas. For example, the API integration was on-prem, and then I think within the VM and LAMP application itself, I think the service bus Kafka is being used to exchange the data between the Postgres database. So once we have the first draft and up and running, people can log on, and then we can test we can pick up the high risk area to start more testing.
And this is a future question, but at some point, once you have the database, everything configured, I'm sure or everything, all the pods, the deployment push, I'm sure there's some kind of configuration, right? Like for core banking, and isn't there? Do we know what that's going to look like? Is there a temporary configuration? I guess maybe if we get the PG dump, it'll have kind of a test environment.
So when you think about from infrastructure level configuration or application level configuration?
App level configuration, I guess. Yeah.
App level. So Sunny and Prashant, assume there's going to be configuration database parts. So those are those are the shared the one that we just walked through. But I assume there's going to be application level API configuration, for example if you're gonna call the bank's UI an API, but you're gonna have a configuration for where is that URL, etc. Plus your API need to connect back to your database. There's gonna be database connection string, etc. Those are configuration. Where is that configuration? Do you have config server, or do you have in local public file, like where is those configuration?
Frank, we have all of this in a config server.
Okay.
So, we will share all those configurations with you and the possible values that go into each of these configurations. Okay. But
Okay.
I was just trying to get into this conversation because I didn't want to break the flow here. But we are right now just after having had a look at the deployment diagram, we just moved into how and what problems we are facing trying to
Mhm.
deploy this application or the
Yes.
solution in RBC, and how can we solve those deployment related issues? How can we start and get going?
Yeah.
I would rather want to go back to the original topic. I mean, I'm not saying that those are not issues. Okay, we will solve them. However, I would have wanted this call to mainly discuss and see the deployment topology, the final deployment architecture in production has many aspects, and we have not yet completed all of those, right? For example,
Correct.
we were talking about Kafka. Okay, we were talking about ActiveMQ. Unless we have all of this sorted out, we may get the application up and running. Okay, we may struggle with certain aspects like this Kafka, ActiveMQ. What is the problem with the Postgres database scripts and stuff like that? That's the config server values and all of that. But then we'll have to do all of this again. Okay, when we finalize the deployment architecture for production, and what we are doing here is not in line with that, the one that we discussed.
No, I won't say we're not in line because this is the critical key piece of work that leads to how can we finalize what's going to be our production deployment, right? Because this is a key piece to actually, I think we in the team and working with your team is this is a major POC because we're gonna actually deploy the fundamental components. I think that there's multiple layer here. One is the basic deployments, all the components, and the network setup plus database, all the basic and infrastructure level components deployments. And then being mentioned about next level is configuration. So we kind of doing this POC and as early as possible to learn how to do deployments. Then we can learn okay, based on our dev environments, what should look like in the QA and in production, right?
Generally, Frank, during this PWT phase, I mean, this is the first time in any of my PWT phases, I'm actually doing the deployment in the customer infrastructure, and we are discussing the deployment architecture while we are deploying it and trying to deploy it. Let me put it that way. Okay.
Yeah.
It is the kind of process that you are talking about. Okay. It is more like a learn as we go process.
Correct.
Right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Whereas what we have almost always done is we, during the PWT phase, only define that this is what the deployment architecture is going to be like. Most of the times, the servers are still being procured at this stage on the customer environment itself is not ready. And the first time, that's what slightly what Sunny was trying to allude to, okay, very subtly, okay, that we'll have the guy over here when the code drop is due. Because most of the times, our first time our application gets installed in the customer environment is when the code drop arrives in. Now we are trying to change the mold here. I am not going to resist that, to be honest. Okay, but then if we are doing that, then we will have to set the expectations right here. If we are going to do learn as we grow, then there will be iterations, and there should be the appetite for failures because we will be doing it first time without having it planned up in detail. Right? So that is one part of it. Okay. Now, second is while we try to do what we are trying to do, like get the application deployed here in the dev environment. Okay, I can see the other intention from your side is that once you have the application here, you can in the parallel, while the application comes up, you can have your development of all your interfaces done in the background, so that immediately you can do a connected testing. I appreciate that smart thinking, and I'll support you with that also. Okay. However, the trouble with that approach is that we get so exhausted and obsessed by getting this environment up, we lose the end focus of how it's going to be in production. So keeping these two caveats in mind, okay, caveat number one, I said that because we'll do it first time here without doing an elaborate planning, there can be times when we'll review it to and fro. We have to be open for that eventuality. That's one. And second is, while we do this, we should not lose our focus on the end goal, and we should keep looking at putting down a deployment architecture which gets signed off on either ends, and that has a deadline. It has to happen before we finish our PWT. Okay, and we are almost like midway into PWT. So in getting the environment up, we should not lose the focus on that end state architecture that is going to be, or the end state deployment architecture that is going to be there in production. So these are my
Yeah, I don't think there's gonna be any conflict. Actually, the way that okay, you think like the policy is like different from like your normal implementation. Yes, it's different. It's gonna have to be different because your normal implementation with a bank for this type of product is like 18 months, and we're gonna have to finish in 10 months. So we're gonna have to fast track, right? If we finish PWT like in 2 months and we start deployment and it's like another 6 months, that's not gonna work from our timeline, right? So
absolutely. I'm absolutely with you. So I agree with your approach. I said I'm agreeing to your approach. I'm not going to resist it. However, we have to go in with this caveats.
Yeah, for sure. Like I don't think actually the way that the fact that more than team is already doing the deployments will definitely help actually to finalize the production deployments, because now we learn more. We know the team learn more about their environments. They can quickly come up with say based on learning, this should be the right way deployment to production. I'm not too worried about the production deployments actually, because you pretty much because if you look at this diagram, it pretty much have everything. In the production, it's only about DR configuration to be, right? So that's the only component that's left, right? Because pretty much when we did the dev environment deployments, I would say 99 or 95% it should be same to SDF and IST. Production is more about you add on top of it just DR deployment model, which probably is not going to change majority of the deployment anyway, right? Because it's more a low balance between probably we probably gonna looking at a hot standby or hot code model for DR, right? So there's not gonna be too much difference for any of the deployments actually.
Okay, so to start with, I just was about to interject in between, and then we had some other conversation going up. So Sunny tried to divert the point to me when we were talking about something about ARX and how that works, and then we went into a discussion of some PG dump that we will send from our test environment, which we'll try to deploy here, or rather restore here, and then try to achieve certain things.
Yes.
I tried to intervene in between, but then the conversation went on. What are we trying to achieve there, right?
So I can speak to that. Prashant, we're trying to get this thing running. So we're trying to see what we have, at least get this thing deployed as is. So we don't have the database scripts, so we've deployed some containers, some applications. They need to connect to a database so that we can see this thing come together. I don't have a database, that's the center of everything. So if you don't have the scripts for me, just give me a PG dump for now, and then I can start from there. I can restore that.
I would strongly, not strongly, but at least mildly resist that approach, because database dump is not a very nice way of solving these kind of problems. Okay, so Pawan, what if I can ask you here, where are we struggling with the database scripts?
So Prashant, this is from the ARX product. Okay, I think we received a from the feature branch one of the scripts. Okay, into the release area. Okay,
Mhm.
in the rush of moving things here and there. Okay, that specific script was failing. Okay, so our idea was like go back. Okay, and give the earlier version which got deployed into our Azure environment.
So for sure, like, as part of the standard implementation, I would think, the DB scripts should be a standard script. Because I would assume like any of your implementation with any of the bank or anybody, like that script should be standard, like, because it's just database schema creation. It should not be like, starting from scratch. You can have to create a scripts. It should be ready like for all the implementation.
Okay. So the way it should happen, ideally, is there should be a database script for schema creation. There should be a database script for the objects creation, like tables, views, and synonyms. You don't have
Right.
synonyms in Postgres, but then database, tables, views, then
Right.
whatever sequences and whatever XYZ is required. Okay.
Yeah.
All those object creation should be a part of the script, which is a part of the package. So let me work this out once with Pawan. Okay.
Okay. But Prashant,
yeah.
one is like, I would not expect like, you're gonna have to start to create scripts, because it's a standard, like unless database is being there for like months and years, like and your script should be ready like way long time ago, instead of like start to debug it.
That's not how it happens, Frank. So we have our full database scripts, which is like creating a database for a product from the scratch. It may not matter how old the product and when was the first foundation stone laid down for the product. We will have a full database script to create the database from the scratch. Okay. I will have to work that out separately, and I'll work that with Pawan. I have not been involved too much in this track because I was in the other various PWD tracks over here. So let me just work this out once with Pawan. I will see how we can get this database up. Okay, so
can we have an ETA like when it's gonna be ready? Because to me, if it's not gonna, the script is not gonna be ready for tomorrow, and even like there's a chance like the script is over, but when you run it, there's issues and errors. I think we prefer to get it done first, and then like once your script ready, I think we and the team can just delete that database and rerun the script to recreate.
No problem, yeah. Sir. So I will have that database dump sent over. While if you remember, I was saying I strongly resist, and then I said I mildly resist. So I will give that script. Okay, rather that database dump. So while you guys see, this is where I would want a little bit of a coordinated effort. So we'll give you the database dump. Now, to get the database dump restored, I would give minimal support because that is not my end term goal, right? So you guys can try to get it up, while I would want to put my guys' main focus on getting the database scripts.
Sure,
the formal ones, okay? And I will not spend too much of my time, okay, trying to get the database dump ready. This is the kind of diversions that will take us away from the actual end goal that we are trying to achieve, right? So I'll give you the database dump. You guys mess around with it, while we guys will try to get the things which are required for getting the database up and in a fashion that we envisage in production. And once we have that, we'll give you that support, okay, for getting that normal formal process working. Make sense?
We agree, Prashant. Just it's an interim solution while you guys figure out your scripts.
Yeah.
We gotta go to another room. We'll disconnect and join back. Yeah, we join.
Okay. So I think I can stop the recording, because this is more discuss about like other issues instead of reviewing the diagram. So I will just stop recording.
So while we wait for the others to join in, the next topic, Frank, I would want to take up immediately, okay, is the ARX integration. So how are we planning to do the SSO integration in the end production solution, number one,
Yes.
and versus that, how are we going to imitate that in this environment that we are creating?
So I think is it Total or somebody actually? Oh, Ralph. You know, Ralph, our BA, he reached out to me like, no, because we have a team of SSO team who's we have got SSO development team and also SSO architect as well. And I think I sent you guys the diagram from that team because this is our like I sent you a pattern how it works. For I think the diagram I sent you is for external client SSO. So we're gonna follow that pattern. Like there's IDP, there's like which IDP you're gonna call, like pretend you are the the SSO application in that diagram. So I think we're gonna book a meeting with you and SSO architecture and dev team to work out the detail. I'm gonna check with Ralph when he said he's gonna book that meeting.
Okay, so I'm just trying to search for that diagram. It is come out from your mailbox, friend?
Yeah, it's coming from my probably a couple of weeks ago. I sent you guys after our SSO session, but we're gonna book a detailed SSO session to start to work on it. So I
got
think
it.
yeah.
So external S user SSO patterns. That's one.
Correct.
Okay, so
I
this
would
is
like to
one PDF that I have. Is that
Yeah.
all?
Yeah, that's one diagram because I want to work on external user SSO first and then internal user SSO.
Okay, because to be honest, to set up our environment, okay, we'll have to also close this internal SSO SSO as well.
Yeah.
So that we have our. I'm just opening the diagram. Okay, this is the sequence diagram that you have sent.
Yeah. This will give you exactly the pattern how external user SSO will work and what kind of IDP service going to be used in between, etc. That will be
So we will
exactly the
have-
same pattern.
Perfect. So we will have to, and how do you have your team, Frank? Like how is the team placed here? So you'll have your security team participating in this SSO configuration, or is it just the tech team that will take care of it, and internally you guys will coordinate with your security guys?
I would say our team will coordinate it. You probably I would not expect you to talk to our security team for the configuration.
That's the expectation. So somebody from your team also, there must be one person who will be like running this SSO integration. Some other person would be running the. So how is that the placement of that part of? Because then the reason why I asked that because we've got ARX, we've got LMS, we've got BAM, okay, and we've got common services, CIM. Okay, so there are some 7-8 items that we have to focus on. It is possible for us that we can get stuck in the loop of this SSO. Okay, so we can keep that one thread running in parallel in the background, while a non-SSO environment setup we can start off.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So these are the kind of things that we can smartly plan out. Okay. So if you can find out and tell me that this is the person from your side who's going to do the SSO stuff, I'll get one person from my side.
Yeah.
Coordinate with that person and close the SSO loop in isolation. When that is done, we'll then integrate it in our existing deployment that we have might have probably done without the SSO. Right. So you can I'll leave it with you. You tell me whom should that person coordinate with, and I will let my guy talk to that person. But this whole SSO loop will be around the ARX integration. Generally, it takes a long time for that loop to be closed. So it's better that we start now. But we finish early. We fail early and we finish early.
Yeah. So we already have people from SSO team. We have an SSO squad, agile squad responsible SSO. So the team, like like the architecture and I think the dev leads or reaching out, like to get requirements. So they're ready. They're waiting for like I think Raf RBA he reached out to me as well. Say like he's gonna book that meeting. So maybe like if you can send me your people for SSO, I can forward to him. Maybe you and I should join like first session as well. Just clarify requirements, expectations, etc. Then they can just connect with each other and then start to work on it.
Is Upendra on the call right now?
Oh, that's Upenda.
Yeah, Upendra. No, it's not Upendra, but I'm just asking Upendra. Because I would want Upendra to be in all of those calls.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, he will carry things forward. So let Upendra be along with you with the calls that you are saying where you and I have to be there. Make sure that Upendra is also there so that he will be overlaying across all the threads, right? So he should be knowing everything that's going on.
Can you just let me know, like, who should be in that meeting? Then I can forward to Raf.
I will.
Because he's going to book that meeting.
Nevertheless, whatever I can, let me put it this way. Whether I specify Upendra or not, but any of these tech sessions, he should be inevitably invited, even if I forget mentioning it. That's what I was saying.
Oh, okay. So by default, Upenda should be in all the sessions then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now that was about the ARX and the integration piece. Okay.
Okay.
Then the second piece is about so in the config there will be certain sensitive items. Okay, like the password for the for connecting to MQ or password to connect to database or something like that. So those kind of sensitive items, we generally keep them in the vault. Okay. So what goes in the config is the key for the vault and not the actual value of the password, right? So how do you guys do it here?
I think that one I'm gonna defer to Mo and Vin and Mo. Like what is deployments? So I'll give you like how do we deploy in PCF like our another cloud environments. So normally we use like we use we use config server as well. Like for API it has ID and password. We use our DevOps pipeline to do deployments for ID and password as well. However, the DevOps pipeline, I think we have something called like incursion and decryption because we don't want even anybody to look at it, the password. So our deployment pipeline can accept an encrypted passwords, from DevOps pipeline, people can copy paste onto it. Then the deployment pipeline will actually update the config server, and the config server can decrypt that wait. The password still be stored in the config server as encrypted, and when the application try to retrieve, the config server will be able to actually decrypt the password and then get application will get a password. So that's how it works for API configuration on the passwords deployments and the configuration. With MQ passwords, is that still like for assume it's still for the API, right? Your API, that's for your API configuration and still in your config server as well, right? The password ID and password. You mentioned about votes. What is that vote?
Wait. Prashant, it's a little different in Key Vaults or AKS.
Yeah, for keywords, we keep those passwords and secrets in Key Vault, and during the runtime, we are using secret injector. So we are fetching the values from Key Vaults and use those comments in the